What I did is as I went around, does anybody here have a bag of Doritos or Cheetos or something? Pull them out and bring them here, please.
Do you want them?
Okay, I'm not eating them, I want to see them.
I know you can have them if you do though.
I appreciate that, but no, I just need to see the bag.
They offer. Which one do you want? This one or this one or both?
It doesn't matter, bring them all here.
No. Come on, bro. Come on, Hershey's. This Hershey's is annoying.
So this bag of Cheetos, small this bag is, right? This small bag. This container has 330 calories. That's what it says, 330 calories, just like that. Take that one back. Go ahead and take a seat, and thank you very much for sharing. This bag here says 200 Doritos, Flamin' Hots, says 260 calories for the whole bag.
You show your own? You show?
Is that it? Everybody have it?
No.
So somebody else had a medium-sized bag, not the large party size, right? A medium-sized bag of Doritos, huh? Bring it here, give me the Pop-Tart. Can we stop with it's not funny. I don't know what's wrong, why everyone's laughing this time.
He bringing it hot hard.
The Pop-Tart here is 180 calories. And that's 180 calories. I'm just trying to see something else here. You have to be very careful how they... All right, so 180 calories. A young lady had a bag of chips, and I see kids with chips all day, and I've been pulling them out of their hands and asking them, you know, could I see it? And I kept looking and seeing these calories. Very similar to this, what I see here. Most of them will say this, 180 calories, and then it'll say 3 servings in container. And then they'll say like 330 calories. Now this particular container, this bag, again, medium-sized bag, said 110 calories, really big and black and white, really big and clear. But then it said there's 10 servings in the bag. Now I can tell you as a person who I think was a normal kid, I can tell because I can see you guys as normal kids would eat that whole bag with no problem, right? And that's 10 servings in that bag, so that's a total, not of 110 calories the way the packaging says, but actually 1,100 calories for the bag. Now that brings a question, well, how many calories should a person eat so that they don't gain? Now there's a couple things you can do is you gain weight, right? Mm-hmm. So weight is always on people's minds because, you know, obesity is a problem in this country. And being active is one way of addressing that, but also being careful with what you eat. Will it fill you up? So when you're eating, the question is always what you eat. Obviously, the big thing for most people, does it taste good, right? The second thing you have to worry about is, does it fill you up? And lastly is, how does it make you feel? Some things you eat, you feel like you have energy and keep going. Other things you eat, you get tired and slow down and you feel like you want to lay down and take a nap. Like after a Thanksgiving meal. All you want to do is unbutton your pants and sit on the couch and sleep for a while.
Don't that cause things to gain weight?
That does. When you eat food like that, that makes you feel like you're tired, doesn't make you want to keep moving. That's what happens, is that you slow down, you're slowing down. So weight's a really tricky thing. Weight is a very tricky thing. Because your weight is dependent on your muscle, your bone, your water, the water in your body, and obviously your fat. Now, if you're a lady, right before your period, you can gain water, right? Because as you swell up, your ankles swell up, then you get what people call bloating, right? You can gain water, you can get up to 5 pounds of water, man, even more. 5, 10 pounds of water and not even know it. And so you get on the scale and you're like, oh my God, I gained 5 pounds. Ew. But you didn't gain 5 pounds overnight. That didn't happen. You just retained water. Water's very heavy. You get on the balance, it shows you it shows you that you've gained 5 pounds. It doesn't tell you whether you gained 5 pounds of muscle. If you're working out, maybe you gained 5 pounds of muscle. If you're not working out, maybe you gained water. You can't tell just by looking at weight. There are balances, electronic balances. I have one at home that connects to my iPhone and downloads all the information that will tell you your percent of each of these. So every time you get on, it could see I gained 5 pounds, but I can see my percent water went up. My percent fat's the same, or it went down. Why? Because I gained water, obviously, right? Yes? Mm-hmm. So, and by the way, you can gain water when you exercise, male or female. Exercise can break muscle, and if you break muscle, that's normal. They call it ripped, right? You've heard people call it this? Rip, because you're ripping your muscle. You gain water weight. People will you'll look at, after you work out in the gym, your muscle actually look like it's swollen a little bit. It's actually swollen with water.
Because in the morning, it's just going back to its regular size.
That's right. The next day it goes back. Well, it might not be, it's a slight increase, but you can't really, how hard you work. And you'll gain muscle. You will gain muscle. They will get bigger, but they're not going to get that big that quick. It's going to take time. But the point is that weight is tricky. It's actually, it could actually lie to you, because just because you're gaining weight does not mean you're gaining fat. So fat is what we're worried about, because if you gain too much fat, you're gaining too much weight, and that could really start to do some harm to you. Now, I want to be clear that this is a very tricky issue with kids your age. And the reason it's tricky is because there's this thing called body dysmorphia, where people look in the mirror and they see themselves as ugly. Okay? Even when they're not. They see themselves as being fat when they're not fat. So there's two diseases, bulimia and anorexia. These people here are anorexic. This woman looks in the mirror and sees herself as fat. She thinks she's fat. This woman takes a picture of herself and says she's fat. And you could tell her she's skinny. You could tell her she's too skinny. You could tell her she's too skinny, and she said, look at this fat. And she'll point to her belly and say she's fat. She's not saying it because she's trying to be special, right? She's not trying to be a diva. She's not saying it because she wants attention. She literally sees herself as being fat. That's how bad it can get. This is especially true with women in our society. Unfortunately, in our society, we have we trained our little girls to think of themselves as objects that need to attract someone, whatever that someone is, right?
What did it do? Make them stop doing, what did it make them do? Lose?
They don't eat or they don't eat.
They don't
So
eat.
they stop eating.
They stop eating. They have all kinds of problems. Some of them are bulimic. They'll eat because their mom will eat. Mom will tell you, you gotta eat. You're gonna
They
eat.
throw it all up, right?
They'll eat, and then they'll go to the bathroom and stick their fingers in their mouth and vomit into the toilet.
I wonder what skinny did.
And it's all over the place. These kids, I call them kids, but some of them are not kids. Some of them are older women, and some are boys. Look at this guy.
He gained a little.
He thinks he's fat. Looking himself in the mirror, he thinks, wow, I got a lot to lose still. This little girl thinks she's fat. All right? So the problem with these, with considering with being, which is what Lizzo is trying to battle, right? She's trying to say, look, I've been fat my whole life. And my wife fell in love with me when I was fat. And my wife loves me for who I am. And we're attracted to each other, we're happy. And me being fat doesn't impact her view of me. She doesn't think I'm ugly. I don't think she's ugly. But we're trying to lose weight because we want to be healthier. Not because we want to look better. Not because how we look in the mirror. I don't even look at mirrors because I want to avoid this problem. When I see you kids taking pictures of yourselves in front of mirrors all day long because you want to, you're constantly looking at that image and you're trying to make sure you fit some picture. I don't know what it is that you have in your mind about how you look. I'm concerned that you might end up like some of these people, because this is how this woman ended up. You might end up overemphasizing this. Now, this is anorexia and bulimia is not, it's not that uncommon in our society. It's an issue. So you got to be careful. The discussion I'm having with you today is not about fat because you're ugly. That's not true. And I want to point out something. You want to see how common it is. At our last meeting, we're not going to mention names. Is that understood? At our last meeting, we had a young lady get up on the stage. I've known her since she was in 9th grade. She's in, I think, 11th grade now. Or senior, I can't remember. This girl is a top athlete. She's an award-winning athlete. Are we clear? She's a track star. The best possible body you can have, right? I mean, a track star, she has to have muscle, she has to run, she's fast, top to bottom. This girl, did you hear her at our last meeting? Get up on stage and tell you that she looks in the mirror and she doesn't like what she sees. She thinks she's not happy with her body. How sad is that? I pulled her aside and said, you have to not, you need to see, I told her, and we talked and we had a good conversation, but I'm telling you right now that this is a common problem, especially among our ladies, but you saw guys, it happens to us too. You can look in the mirror and see yourself as fat no matter what. You can start to eat, it eats away at your brain. And let me be very clear. The stuff in the magazines, the stuff in the movies is all made up. They're not real. Those people you see on this, what is that? Miley Cyrus on the Wrecking Ball and all the rest of that stuff. That's not her. That's some show that they put on. They use special effects. They use, in magazines, they use Photoshop. They get rid of all the blemishes. These people have pimples. They got wrinkles. They got love handles. They get rid of all that. These people have special makeup artists, body makeup artists to help paint them. They get painted like a canvas. They have people that pay $100,000 a year just for lighting, to make sure their bodies are lighted in such a way as to be absolutely the best. So don't compare yourself to these people. They're not real people. I mean, they are real people, but the the image you're looking at isn't real. A lot of money, a lot of effort has gone in to make that up. It's made up. So stop judging yourself against that. Rihanna, as beautiful as she is, doesn't look that way in real life.
Sorry.
I know, I'm just telling you that they're literally, people make a lot of money to make these people look a certain way. And they'll tell you that. If you go online and look at these stars, they've come out and said it. They've come out because they know little girls are growing up with this bad image, and they're looking at, and they're seeing the damage that's happening to these little girls. I say girls because mostly girls, even though some boys. They're looking in the mirror and they think of themselves as less because of some stupid image that they got from a magazine or from a video or whatever. Don't do that to yourselves. Every child in this building is beautiful exactly the way you are. You are the way you're supposed to be. The only question is not about how pretty you are or how good you look. Really, your question has to be, how healthy are you? And can I do anything to make myself healthier? Can I live a better life? Can I live a better life? Not can I make myself look better? Look at me in the mirror, clickety click. No, it's can I be healthier? Can I be happier? I got so many years left, who knows how many years? Can those years be happy? Can I move? Can I enjoy it? Can I go for a walk without breathing heavy? Can I go up some stairs without breathing heavy? Can I do what I want to do? And will I live? Because how this fits into what we've been talking about is we know today by several studies that these viruses that we're under attack from, right? The flu virus, all the coronaviruses, including the flu, A and B, and what's the other one? What's the one that came out recently that you have to know by 5? COVID-19. We know that COVID-19, if you have high blood pressure, if you're obese, you're going to have a harder time surviving COVID-19 than if you don't. Asthma, all these things make you more susceptible to serious complications from an infection. So when I'm talking to you about this, I'm not talking about you getting thin. I'm talking about you making sure that you're healthy. Is that clear? All right. Because I don't want you to go into this thinking anything other than what I'm saying. When you look at this calculator, there's many of them. I have an app on my phone called MyFitnessPal. Now I'm trying to lose weight because I am obese and my wife and I are trying to improve our health. But you could just look at this to make sure that you don't become obese, right? So, but don't make the mistake of trying to lose weight just to lose weight. I'm telling you, you need to talk to your parents and your doctor and talk to them about your nutrition and what you should be eating and how much you should be eating. Those are things you need to do. Don't do this make these decisions on your own. Is that clear? You're way too young to be worried about that. You have to remember that these calculators, they actually start at 16. You can't go any younger because at your age and before, your bodies are growing. You might need more energy than this number is telling you. Is that clear? So it's hard for these calculators to talk about you. That's why I'm telling you to go talk to your doctor and your nutritionist, your mother, and etc. But let's take a look at your average 16-year-old. Let's look at can someone volunteer to give me some dimensions?
Yeah, 5'4".
5'4", male. 5'4",
Big.
weight?
Like 130.
All right, 130. And sedentary, which means you're not moving around a lot at all.
Very active.
Very active? All right. So you can eat as many as 2,727, so 2,727 calories, right? And because you're male, by the way, watch what happens when I click on female. Because on average, males have more muscle, and muscle burns fat. They eat up calories. Muscle uses calories. Fat doesn't use calories. Fat stores calorie away. The fat cells they use some, but they store those calories away. Muscle is using it. So the male will tend to have a bigger calorie limit to maintain your weight, just to keep your weight at 130 pounds, if that's you. 2,491. Now let's, this is a female here. Does there a female would like to give some other dimensions? Yeah. 411. 125. And very active, moderately active. Very active. Female, again, about the same, 2,413. To stay the weight you are. Now, let's flip back to the previous video. So here now on the screen, let's take a look at these calories. We have 330 calories. Oh, it's still, hold on. So we look at this and we see 330 calories, or even this, 1,100. We said that to maintain your weight, 2,413 calories is necessary. Let's say you're having your relaxing time and you eat your bag of chips. Your bag of chips, we said, was the medium-sized bag. It's 1,100 calories. You just ate almost half of your calories. You only have 1,314 calories left for the day. This girl that ate this, she ate that today, this morning. This was her breakfast. There are hamburgers out there that are 2,000 calories that people eat. 2,000 that people eat just for dinner, after they've eaten breakfast, after they've eaten their chips, after they've eaten their fries. That's without fries, 2,000 calories.
Would
Oh,
it
it's
be
a great
bad though
burger.
if you like
Red
ate
Robin, look it up.
Would it be bad if you ate it and you burned it? Like,
That's gonna be hard to do.
no, like I'm saying, like let's say you eat lunch, right? And then you go to the gym like an hour.
I'll tell you in a second. I'll tell you how hard that's gonna be to
You
do.
feel the weight getting on your guts when you eat that burger.
I bet, I've never eaten that burger, but I've always wanted to, because you tell me it looks like it's that much, I'm like, but I can never make myself do it, because I'm like, that's just a sin. It's like, there's just something wrong with that. What?
I know somebody like he be having like full-blown
No,
tables of food, he eating it.
Real good. That's gonna take us to the next part of the discussion. Good, let's hold on to that. So, just a second, let me finish this and then we'll go on. So that's 1,300 calories. So if this kid wants to eat that bag of chips that this other girl did, she'd have 1,300 calories left. Each meal is about 500 calories. Should be about 500 calories. A meal for lunch should be, like, think about it. If you have 2,414 calories, and you divide that by 3, what would that be? 2,414 calories divided by 3. That'd be 804 calories per meal. Let's subtract maybe 100 calorie snacks every once in a while. What was the smallest bag of chips here? 180. So let's subtract the 180. So if you have a small bag of chips in between breakfast and lunch, and a small bag of chips between lunch and dinner, that's what? 180 plus 180 is 360, all right? So minus 3. Oh, so yeah, so it'd be something like maybe 6. Let's just say, just on average, 600 to 700 calories per meal, just to stay the weight you are. If you're eating, if every time you sit down to eat anything extra, a bag of Skittles is something like 200 calories. That's 200 off of this. Then you eat your hamburger. French fries is, McDonald's French fries is about 400 calories.
But they're so good.
And then a burger, I forget what it is. I'm going to make up a number, I don't know. But let's say 700, 800 calories. You can see the calories on the menu, by the way, in McDonald's. 1,000 calories, some of them are 1,000 calories, some of those burgers. If you eat one burger, French fries, and a Coke, a can of Coke, a 12-ounce can of Coke, I think is 100 calories, 90 calories, something like that. So yes. People will sit down, and I used to do it, take a 2-liter and drink it, man. On a hot, thirsty day, you're playing a game of basketball or soccer or something. Man, you sit down and get that lemonade, those bottles of lemonade or fruity fruit juice.
If I'm hot, I'm gonna drink water. Why would you go drink hot? That's what makes you feel out.
No, it does. It's just, I mean, it doesn't. It's water, any water. Yeah. Huh?
Yeah, I drink water.
Yeah. So all I'm saying, guys, is that when you're dealing with these numbers, think about that. One McDonald's lunch, because we all love McDonald's. Well, most of us. I personally would rather go to Burger King, but that's my choice. It's the king of burgers. Yeah,
The
that's all it
best
is.
fast food is definitely going to be We're not getting it.
I don't argue that.
We're not going to get it.
Yeah, but anyways, the bottom line is, let's say we love McDonald's. We're all going on a field trip. We're having McDonald's. We're going to sit down and eat 1,900 calories. It's like most of your calories for the day. And you already had breakfast. And then you still got, you're going to get hungry before dinner. You don't eat a Big Mac, a large fry, and a soda and say, okay, that's it, I'm done eating for the day. And nobody does that. 2 hours, I promise you, if it's a long day and we're at the zoo and we walk around and we sit and we go back on a bus and you get home and mom's cooking your favorite dinner, you're going to go,
Oh God, I need parts. That's all.
you're like, all right, Mom, I'll take some of that turkey or whatever it is you're eating. You love.
I'm trying to say no. You're like, no, I don't want it. She's like, no.
Are you sure you're gonna get sick? No, come on.
Like, okay,
And then don't even get me started when Uncle Bob brings over the cheesecake, right? The casada cake.
No, then my mom will be like, go upstairs, you're not getting it.
Or Aunt Betty brings over the chocolate chip cookies with macadamia nuts, and the walnut brownies, right? And Granny brings the cookies, and you're just like, So anyways, do you see how quickly these calories can add up on a daily basis? And really, when people look at other people and make fun of them because they're fat, because people do, and I don't think anyone should. As a fat person who's been fat my whole life, I'm very sensitive to it. In fact, to this day, when people laugh, even when kids laugh, there's a little part of me in the back of that little fat kid in the back of my head, in my brain, my memories. I just twitch. I just want to I want to. It hurts, right? Because it's like, are you making fun of me? Are they laughing at me? Are they talking about me? That's what it feels like. How bad is that? How bad is that you grow up in such an environment that after 53 years of living on the planet, you still got a part? It's a small part of my brain. It's a small memory, but it's still there. I recognize it. That little kid is still hurting after that many years. So next time you want to laugh at somebody, that you're not laughing with them, right? Laugh with them, that's fine. They're your friend, you're joking around, that's okay. But don't laugh at people. Because when you laugh at them and you make fun of them, and you are making fun of them, and you may not mean this, you may not mean to do this, but you're hurting them. If you do, apologize and let them know that you didn't mean any harm by it, and make them feel better, because honestly, do you really want to be responsible for someone feeling bad the rest of their lives? Even if it's just a little part of their brain? Because that all feeds into that anorexia, right?
You don't want that burden on your back.
Yeah, that's a burden, man. Like, making someone feel bad is not something I ever want to do. And I know sometimes it may not feel that way, so I'm like, you just failed your test. I don't really mean to make you feel bad. I just want you to change your behavior. That's all I'm trying to do. When I tell you, you got to study, you got to do this more, you got to do that more. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I just want you to feel like I want you to do the right thing so you can help yourself. But bottom line is, be careful what you say, because sometimes what you say, I'm going to tell you right now, as my father, I would rather he hit me than he say some of the things that he had said to me when I was a kid. Because some of the things they say to you when you're, especially coming from your parents, it hurts. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Wait, this guy, my idol, right? The old man, my role model, the guy who helped make me is saying this? Oh. So it hurts. So you got to be careful what you say, because sometimes what you say hurts more than the physical things we do. Although the physical stuff hurts too.
Man, when you say hurt,
Yeah.
I remember my uncle trying to really before it didn't hurt me.
So they might say, well, that skinny guy, he has a lot of metabolism. He must have a high metabolism because he's eating a lot of food. He eats all the time. He eats chips, he eats candy, he eats a whole pizza, and he's still skinny. Well, the thing is that for most people, they don't have a naturally high metabolism. What's happening is that this kid is playing 2 hours of basketball, runs to the bus stop, doesn't walk, runs, is always moving somewhere, going somewhere, doing something, doesn't sit still. The only way this skinny person can eat a lot above the calories, this is physics. This is non-negotiable. It's not a trick. There's no trick to this. It's very simple. If you eat a lot of food and you don't use it, it goes to fat. Done. So if you're not using anything extra above that limit, that number, whatever that number is, I just showed you the calculator that can calculate that. Again, talk to your doctors, talk to your mom, talk to your nutritionist. But there's a calorie number, whatever that number is, that's going to maintain your weight. The more, you just saw that, right? I just did it for you. The more active you are, the higher that number is. The higher that number is. So if you're very active, like that young lady back there, you can eat 2,000 calories and be a small person and be fine. But if you're, again, that's according to the numbers that we calculated on this calculator. I don't know how accurate it is. I suggest strongly you speak to your physician or a nutritionist because they have more up-to-date and accurate information. But the less active you are, the less calories you can eat. And that's the answer how somebody can be thin, eat a lot and stay thin, because they're very active. Now, I'm going to tell you this. To be honest, studies have shown that the biggest impact is not activity, but it's calories. Because this person that we just talked about, the skinny individual, whoever that is, when that person becomes older, they're going to get really busy. They're not going to have time to go play 2 hours of basketball. They're not going to have time to do this, that, and the other thing. They're going to be a teacher and be in a classroom sitting on a chair for 5 classes a day. And unless they get out and walk around for 5 miles, they're not going to be able to get their 10,000 steps. That's why doctors tell you to take 10,000 steps a day, because that increases activity, right? And that means that those calories you're eating can be used up and you're not turning it into fat. And 1 pound of fat is equal to 1,000 calories. All right? So when you're calculating these things, if you go over that limit that you have, that maintenance limit, if you go over that limit for 1,000 calories, every 1,000 calories you go over that limit, total, you gain a pound of fat. It doesn't sound like, a pound doesn't sound like a lot. If you lift up a pound, it doesn't feel like it's much at all, right? But I'm going to tell you, it takes up a lot of space because fat is less dense. That's why it floats. That's why fat guys like me can swim so well, because we float well. And that's why skinny people find it hard to float, because fat is easier to float. Muscle and bone and skin doesn't float as well, because it's more dense. Yeah.
So there's like no possible way a skinny person cannot, like, they have to do something, be active to be skinny.
Or they're eating less than you think.
Yeah, I'm talking about for the person that be eating all the junk.
Yeah, they're active in some way. There's something they're doing. It doesn't have to be basketball. It doesn't have to be a sport. You'd have to follow them along. You have to follow them around all day to find out what's going on. So they're moving up and down. They're going up and down stairs. You can see them in the hallway all the time, walking around. They're moving up and down the stairs. They're never sitting still. I've had a couple. My little brother, who used to be skinny, he still is kind of skinny, but he never sat still. He's always shaking. When he was sitting, his knees going up and down like that. I'm like, dude, just chill. It's like, what? They don't even know that they're moving. They're constantly moving. They're never sitting still. That's not me. I'm a calm, not always calm, but I'm not an active person naturally. I have to make myself get up and move. Otherwise, I won't move. I'll just sit here. I can sit here all day and enjoy a movie, cartoons, play video games, talk to you all day. And get up, stretch, and sit down and do some more. I got no problem. I am the epitome, the definition of couch potato. Yeah.
But you still get up and walk.
I do that because, why do I do that?
Potato.
Why does this couch potato get up and move around? Because
10,000 steps a day.
I gotta get that 10,000 steps so I don't die. So I'm like, okay, die or take 10,000 steps a day. All right, I'll get up and go. I don't do it because I like it. Yeah. No. All right, so what I just told you is physics. There's no question about it. Now, how old is your little brother?
Oh, he's
15. And
No, little brother. He's my bigger brother.
oh, he's your big brother. I guarantee you that something's going on with your big brother. He's either working or doing stuff when you're not looking.
Are y'all twins?
No, I'm younger.
Okay, then your big brother is an alien, and he's from another universe that has different laws. The laws of physics don't apply to him.
I mean,
Is that better? Okay. So the bottom line is your metabolism is high only because you're active. Now, the other active does not necessarily mean basketball playing. It doesn't mean that you can't spend hours at home playing video games. It could mean that you're growing. So if your body's taking all those calories to make bone and muscle because you're growing taller, then it's using those calories. The metabolism is being used. So in fact, teenagers that are 12, 13 years old, they look like they're doing nothing. They're very frustrating. They're very tired. Teenagers tend to be tired when they're your age. And you tend to see them kind of lay around. But they're actually not laying around. What they're doing is growing. And it takes a lot of effort, a lot of cellular division, a lot of mitosis, a lot of protein fibers need to be made. Cells have to be made. Tissues have to be made. Organs have to grow. So all this is going on with anywhere from 12 to 16. Yet a lot of that's happening. So they might look like they're sedentary, but this is a physical reality. If you need only 1,500 calories a day to maintain your weight, and you take in 2,000 a day, I guarantee you're going to gain fat. There's no other way around it. how many calories you need to maintain your weight. You saw the factors, we just did it, right? Height, weight, age, activity level.
That's gonna be 7 pounds.
Yeah. And another thing I need you to understand is at this point, you should not be trying to regulate how many calories you're eating too strongly. When you're my age, I have this thing called MyFitnessPal on my phone. I put all the food I eat, I put in all the activities I take in, and it does the calculation you just saw us do on the computer. It does it on my phone. It tells me how many calories I have left. So I know I can't eat any more today, or maybe I can plan to try to eat this for dinner, so I need to skip that for lunch, no snacks or whatever, right? You shouldn't be doing that at this point. Because the thing that's confusing you from doing this, should stop you from doing this, is that your body's growing. Your body's changing. It needs the energy. So the only thing that you should be concerned about is if you're growing. If you were like me when I was your age and you're growing this way, right? If you're just like, wow, 300 pounds, what was I? 200 pounds, 220, 230, 240, and you're not getting any taller.
Our age?
Oh, I was fat my whole life.
You said you was in the army.
I lost fat, I gained fat, I got you. Huh? So 160, 170?
Oh, but then like you said, you stopped being active and then you still
That's the key, right? You got it, right?
Oh.
I know this not just because I studied it in a book, not just because I got a degree in it, because I lived it. I'm telling you what happens without a question. This is not up for debate. This is a fact check. That's it. Yeah.
So like, if you try to control like how many calories you take, you get like eating disorders.
Yeah, that's the danger. Your big danger, especially around with girls, but actually some boys get this too, is this thing called body dysmorphia, ladies. Body dysmorphia. There are thin people that look in the mirror and see themselves as fat. It's really, and they look down on themselves. And it really is sad because fat people are beautiful. My wife loved me my whole life. Since we got married, I've been fat most of my life. She didn't care if I lost weight or not. The only reason we're losing weight together is because we want to live long.
That's true love.
So it's not just true love. I'm just telling you right now, guys. There's nothing there. What's that singer's name? The one that was naked in the mud in the Lizzo. Naked at the basketball game. At the basketball game.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I don't want to talk about details. Look, listen. That woman's beautiful. And just because she's heavier doesn't make her any less beautiful. And that's her point with that disgusting pair of pants that she wore at the basketball game. I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. Jennifer Lopez, I thought, no. When she wore the clothes she wore, I don't care what you look like naked. I don't need to see it unless you're my wife. Thank you. So bottom line, though, unfortunately in this society, and I think this is what Lizzo's point was, is that especially to our girls, we do this to our girls more than boys. And it really is, I wish I could curse because it really frustrates me. It bothers me because what we do to our little girls is we train them to think of themselves as like objects, right? And that you have to be pretty, and you have to look a certain way, and you should be dressed a certain way, and you belong to a society. You think you should look a certain way so you can please whoever, right? And I think it's something we got to get over in our society. It's something we got to deal with. Unfortunately, what that leads to, guys, and we train you. We've trained you to do this since you were little. We trained you when we gave you your first Barbie. Those of you who play with Barbie. Have you ever seen a fat Barbie? Do they? All right. So They give you Barbies, they give you the models in the magazines, right? It's all those teen magazines. I think that things are changing a little bit now. But all the teen magazines, and hey, there's nothing wrong with skinny. Skinny's beautiful too. And the idea that somehow beauty is limited to something, right, is outrageous to me. So when you're looking at these magazines, but what you see is all the skinny people a certain way, and then you see all the jokes, all the comedians. The clumps were all fat, right? The Nutty Professor, Hercules. None of those people were thin. And the fat people of the world are the last group that people can make fun of, and it still be okay. So when ladies are growing up and they're focusing on trying to make sure they look a certain way so they can please a certain guy or woman or whatever, kids, especially around your age, they start looking in the mirror and they start judging themselves very harshly, and they start looking at themselves as being fat, and they hate themselves. They start to hate themselves, and they try not to eat, and they won't eat. And they starve themselves, and their parents will make them eat, and they'll go to the bathroom and they'll vomit. And the acid rots their teeth and makes their stomach and their heart it gets them heart damage. And they keep doing it. I could show you pictures of people that are anorexic, and might as well go ahead and show it to you.
Let me see, but it's also kind of vice versa, because some people who are really skinny come feel like they got to fat.
That's what I'm saying, is that
No,
there are...
I'm not anorexic. She's talking about girls that think they fat. I'm talking about girls that think they skinny.
This woman looks in the mirror, literally, this woman looks in the mirror. I saw it, and this woman looks in the mirror, and are you listening to me?
Yeah.
These people see fat. They look in the mirror, and they see themselves as fat. And you can tell them that they're not fat, and they're going to tell you, no, they are, you're crazy. And it happens to guys too. It just happens less often to guys. It hurts them, it kills them. This is killing them. Their bodies are eating themselves. Their bodies are their bodies are digesting their own protein.
But they said that when you do stuff like that, and when you start eating again, you can't eat as much anymore because your stomach not used to
No, hold on. Let's stop jumping around. I do things one time. So this is the danger, guys, and this happens again more to women than men, but it does happen to men. And I gotta say that this is the danger of focusing on calories and being fat and being overweight. See, there's this like fine line, right, between worrying about getting too big, like I was most of my life, so big that it impacts your health, right, and getting so obsessed that you do that to yourself. So anorexia, bulimia, we call it body dysmorphia. You heard a young lady, we're not going to say names because I'm recording this, but you heard a young lady stand in front of our school at our last faculty meeting. It broke my heart. I know that girl. I had her since 9th grade. I love that kid. I just think of her. If I had a daughter, I'd love her to be just like her. She's a gorgeous, sweet athlete, top-notch athlete, in shape. And you heard her stand up there and say she hates the way her body looks.
Oh, don't say the name.
Yeah, we're not saying the name, but you heard her say that, and it bothered me so much, because what more could you ask of yourself than when you are literally a track star, literally someone who is at their top physical condition, and you look in the mirror and you don't like the way you look, way your body looks. Wow. If you're looking in the mirror and you're saying, I don't like what I see, ladies, if you're doing that, please seek help. Please find somebody to help you, because you should not be doing that. Are you listening to me? talk to somebody. Because there's not a God blessed child in this school, in this world, that isn't beautiful to me. And all of you, boys and girls, you are the way you were meant to be. The only question that you have to concern yourself with is, am I the healthiest I can be? Don't worry about how you do you please this? Am I too fat? Am I too skinny? I know some adults do this to their children. I know we do this to ourselves. I know we watch magazines and we read them and we look at TV and movie stars and we see all these crazy people in diapers swinging on wrecking balls or whatever they're doing. These people are they're just trying to get money. They're just trying to get attention. They're not real people. The real people are behind the camera. Right? Those characters they play in the videos and the movies, they're not real. The real Miley Cyrus is at home with her husband or her fiance or whoever, dealing with real world, whatever. They're not the people you see on the TV and the screen. This is not real. Most things you see in magazines are photoshopped. Most movies and shows, they got people that spend their time doing special effects to make their skin glow, to make everything. They pay someone $100,000 a year to make sure the lighting is perfect so that they don't show any blemish. Ladies, you keep doing that, I will have you after school. And not for positive things. When you're dealing with this kind of stuff, you have to understand there's an entire industry that's selling you looks. They're selling you how people look. It's not real. Many TV stars, many movie stars have said this. They've come out with blemishes on their skin in public so people can take... And you see these People magazines and all these disgusting magazines that I think they're disgusting. They're taking pictures of these people on the beach. Oh, look, so-and-so has a belly. So-and-so has this. They're taking them in their bikinis. All they're doing is pushing this image of their idea of beauty. These internet trolls that say these horrible things to you. To heck with them. They mean nothing. They impact your life not at all. You have to concern yourself with one thing. Are you healthy or not? If you get infected with something, can you fight it off? Are you on your way to live a long, healthy life? Or are you in danger, whether you're too thin or too big, or you're not getting enough exercise, or whatever it is? It's not about how you look. It's about, are you feeling good? Can you move? Are you going to be able to stay healthy until the day that this is all over? Right? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Yeah. Yeah. So when we're talking about, when you see those calculators and you're wondering how many calories should I eat, please take it as an estimate. Please don't take it as like, oh wow, I'm going to make sure I eat under this until I get to be looking like this. No, it's a question of, am I healthy? Am I on the right track to stay healthy until my life is over, whenever that day is? Hopefully it's not till you're 80, 90, 120, whatever years old. Some of you guys will live to 120, 140 years old because of technology, because of all of the wonderful technologies coming out now. By the time you're my age, you'll be able to clone your own liver, your heart, print your organs, and transplant whatever you need, as long as you have money, by the way. So. Yeah, maybe not. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna live as long as I live. I'm not gonna worry about it because I got no control. But I'm just letting you all know that the things you do have control over is whether you walk when you have time or not, whether you sit down and watch shows or move around or not, how much you eat. Do you just eat a slice of pizza? Do you eat a whole pizza? There's things you can make. There are choices you make every day, and you should be thinking about, how much activity did I do today? Like, I have to do that. I have to force myself to do that because I don't do it naturally. I'll just eat and I'll be enjoying my meal and relaxing all day if I could. But you can't. Huh? No, I do that because I'm bored. All right, so 1,000 calories equals a pound of fat. So now let's talk about something else. Let's talk about something else. So the bottom line is, when you're looking at your meal, you want a balanced meal. Different people have different ideas of what this means, but in general, you want most of your calories to be out of carbohydrates, but you want them to be complex. And what does that mean? That means that you don't want them to be from sugar. You don't want them to be from starch. You want them to be from complex carbohydrates, things that are like multigrain, right? Wheat, whatever. What are those? You can make some wiser choices. The best thing you can eat stuff there's something called the Glycemic Index. That measures how much any food increases your blood sugar. It's glycemic. It's your blood sugar level. That's what that means. There's an index that you can look up, and you can make some wise choices on how to take in those carbohydrates. I can promise you that chips, in whatever form they take, are 100% simple sugar. They will bounce your blood sugar up tremendously and quickly. Candy, same thing. Simple sugars. You eat it, your blood sugar's spiking, which means if you're healthy, it means your pancreas is going to produce insulin. That means in 1 hour you're going to be tired and hungry again. In an hour or so, so noodles, white noodles like flour noodles, bread. Ramen noodles are probably the prepackaged stuff. Amazing. I lived through them with college. They got me through college. They're horrible for you. High in salt, which increases your blood pressure, which increases the ramen noodles themselves are white flour, so they're simple sugars. They're going to spike your blood sugar, which means an hour or so later, anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, you're feeling tired, you're ready to sleep, you don't feel like going and walking, you eat more, and you're ready to go to bed. So it's really not great for you. Yes, question?
You said that when you eat simple sugars and you are active, it makes you tired and hungry.
Active or not, what happens is it spikes. Hey, I had a good question you didn't hear. Ladies, I heard a question back there too, but I got two questions at the same time. So this young lady here says, if you're active and you eat the simple sugars, will it still make you tired? And the answer is yes, because what happens is active actually helps reduce that, because the activity increases endorphins, which makes you actually want to do more, be more active. The more active you are, the more active you want to be, the more energy you have. And if you eat simple sugars, it tends not to make you as tired. Where if you're sitting around, you're not very active. Do you see him moving around right now? Did you notice that? That's energy he's spending. I see him do it all the time, and it's not knocking you. I just want to point out, because some people are like, well, what about this person? Can you do it again, or yeah. So he's doing stuff like that all the time. He's constantly moving. That's good. That's not a bad thing. I'm just telling you, he's probably not going to be that way his whole life. Probably when he gets to be an adult and he has to sit there and figure out his taxes and whatever, he's going to move around less. If he keeps eating the way he does today, he's going to start getting weight. And that's why older people get bigger. That's what happens to us as we get older. We become more sedentary. However active we were in high school, we're less active as an adult. That's why they call it, when people go to college, they call it the freshman 10. People gain 10 pounds on average when they go into college because all of a sudden they got all this work to do and they're sitting in the library eating ramen noodles, studying whatever, doing whatever they got to do. But they're not active. So, anyways, candy, yes. You become less sleepy. It has less of an impact, but it still spikes your blood sugar. What was the other question in the back?
I said, can you gain weight in your sleep?
Gain weight in your sleep. Only if you've eaten too much before you went to sleep. So the only way you gain weight, guys, is if you're taking in too many calories. Let me rephrase that. That's a lie. That's a lie. The only way you can gain fat is if you take in too many calories. You can gain weight. Stop getting on the scale. Most of you will gain up to 5 pounds right before your period. And up to 5 pounds of water. You will retain water. People that work out, men don't have that because we don't have periods. But men, when we work out, and women, when you work out, when you rip muscle, you will they'll tend to swell up with water. So they might even look at how much work I did. Your muscles are a little bigger, but they're bigger because they're filled with water. But that increases your weight. So you get on that scale and you're like, I gained 5 pounds. It's only water. That's why I would suggest to you, if you're worried about your health, to look at getting a scale from, I got mine from Amazon, that estimates body fat percentage, water weight, bone mass, muscle mass, and fat percentage, and BMI. It does all of it, and it puts it onto my phone. I think I can show you, actually. No, I don't want to show you. Yeah. No, only because I have to switch the thing. I can show you later, though. Yeah.
So people, like, you know how men, they be working out and stuff, and they take steroids. Steroids just, like, increase your...
Steroids are so horrible that they're not even... Look, I don't even like getting steroids as a treatment for something.
I'm saying, like, is it just...
All right, so let's be clear on what steroids do to you. Steroids and anabolic steroids. Anabolic steroids are steroids that are going to make you grow muscle. They do make you grow muscle. You will get stronger, you will be bigger, and it'll be more muscle. Yo, pay attention. But by the way, the only way that's going to work is if you're eating protein. You can't eat pure sugar and gain muscle. At least not a lot of it. Because sugar has no amino acids in it. There's an essential amino acid you need that you cannot get from sugar. You can make most of them yourself, but you need nitrogen. You need a source of nitrogen that comes from protein. Are we clear? Keep talking, ladies. There's going to be a problem. So, if you're going to gain muscle, you can take steroids, but there's so many bad things about it, it's not even funny. It shrinks your testicles if you're a guy. It increases your risk of cancer. You could have a schizophrenic break, which means they call it roid rage. It's called roid rage. Roid rage. People go crazy on this stuff. The muscles are only temporary. As soon as you stop taking the injections, you lose the muscle mass, and guys will grow breasts.
That's why they keep
No. Not giant pectoral muscles that people call breasts. No, they actually grow breasts. Like breasts.
Oh, so not the chubby chest, but like actually.
Yeah.
Not chubby chest.
Yeah, no.
It's possible.
Like, I'm telling you, those are the side effects of taking steroids.
Does that give you energy?
No.
What if you maintain your steroids? What if you stop taking?
That's what happens. You lose the muscle. And women, we're talking about, and that's not even talking about what it does to your heart, your kidneys, your liver. I mean, it's just horrible. Stay away from steroids unless you're prescribed by a doctor. Yeah.
What about like sweating your sleep?
There's all kinds of reasons people do that.
Wait, Mr. Mendoza,
Yeah.
why would doctors give you steroids?
Steroids sometimes help with infections. They help fight infections. Steroids can be
Don't they have, like,
replacement.
diabetic people?
Well, depends. Yeah.
Like, what prescribed steroids you do from like steroids that like aren't prescribed?
Athlete, they can be prescribed as athletes for certain conditions. Like I think it's Serena, one of the Williams sisters. I think it's Serena. It might be Venus. I can't remember. Can I finish? She has a chronic condition. I forget what it is. She has an illness that's continuous, right? That she has to take a drug for. It's a steroid. There are drugs that are steroids. They're not meant for, there's different types, and they're not meant, it's not testosterone. She's not taking testosterone, but she's taking something that is a steroid. No, it's not estrogen. But it is a steroid that is anabolic, but she's taking it for a different condition. They are drugs. We make them not for people to grow muscle. We make them to treat different conditions. But unfortunately, you can abuse them, and if you abuse them, it can have serious lifelong health issues for you. Yeah.
So if it's prescribed by a doctor, then it won't like do anything to your body. It doesn't have to.
It still can do those negative things to your body. That's why the doctor will monitor you by taking blood samples and continuously check and make sure your liver's okay, your kidneys are okay, and make sure like my mother had steroids prescribed to her in the emergency room. She had a psychotic break. She imagined that some people were trying to kill her. She had a roid rage happen to her. It stopped. It was in the hospital, so she got over it real quick, but it can happen. It's very, very scary. You got to be careful with steroids. So anyways, that's it. We'll talk about, we'll finish this tomorrow, and then you're tested on Friday. All right, so what I did while I was walking around this morning, and one of the things that we talked about yesterday as far as prevention, let's list about the things that will be on the test on Friday. Oh, thank you. So the things that will be on the test on Friday as far as prevention, right? Prevention of, and what are we talking about when we're talking about prevention? We're talking about contagious diseases. Contagious diseases come in many, many different forms. Contagious diseases, before we talk about prevention, let's list them. There's bacterial. These can be treated with antibiotics. You can get rid of these diseases with antibiotics, mostly. Unfortunately, there are bacterial diseases that are antibiotic resistant. We do have a couple strains of tuberculosis, for instance, or other diseases like so that we don't have any antibiotics that would stop them from killing you. We have no way of helping you fight these off. So that's a danger. This is actually connected to what we started the week off talking about, which was evolution. So the reason that they become antibiotic resistant is because of natural selection, and we'll talk about that, and genetic variation. Another type of contagious disease is fungal infections. And we've talked about this before, and we do have antifungals. Now, I have to say, our antifungal drugs are not as great as people would like. Fungal infections are notoriously difficult to get rid of. They produce spores that are very hardy. They take a lot to kill. So fungal infections are difficult. Remember, fungus include mushrooms, right? But the fungal infections we're talking about are not mushrooms. There are things more like athlete's foot, ringworm, etc.
Antifungal is the cure, that's the one that kills it.
Say what now?
The antifungal is the one that cures it, like antibiotics.
That's right. Antifungals are drugs that kill fungi. Antibiotics are drugs that kill bacteria. All right. Then we have viruses. All right. These are contagious diseases. They're diseases that you can catch. Obviously, there are other diseases like sickle cell, heart disease, etc. You can't catch those. Cancer, you can't catch it. Right? But viruses cause all kinds of problems. All kinds of problems. And everything from HIV to cancer, like cervical cancer by a human papillomavirus, and of course the flu and etc. In the family of viruses, let's see who can remember how to spell it.
COVID.
Close. That's COVID. That's correct. But that's a specific one. COVID-19 is a specific one we're talking about. But what's the family that you have to be able to spell by Friday?
Oh, C-O-R-O-N.
C-O-R.
Coronavirus.
Close.
C-O-R-O.
Oh, is it CORONAVI?
O-N- Spell it.
CORONAVIRIDAE.
With some.
IDAE.
Viridae.
DAE.
You have to be able to spell it on a test on Friday.
I heard it.
This is the family. Just don't write it down now because you're not going to have your notes. Memorize it. This is the family of viruses that people like to call the coronavirus. And think of the coronavirus like a crown, and that's why if it helps you remember it. There's a family of viruses, so don't say the coronavirus. Those that exist in the Coronaviridae family are things like the flu, and both A and B, things like the cold, a lot of versions, not all, but a lot of colds caused by Coronaviridae.
I have 2B.
Ebola is in this family, and obviously what we've already identified is, what is it? COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 is the topic of the day on the news. Is the issue that we're trying to resolve and make sure that we think about all the different things that we have to deal with COVID-19. Yeah.
Ain't flu A worse than flu B?
I don't know the answer to that question. We can look it up later though if you'd like. So prevention is key, with viruses especially, but any of these diseases, the key to this is you want to prevent getting it, and if you get it, you want to mitigate it. So there's prevention, right? Then there's something called containment. Can someone close the door? There's containment, and then there's mitigation. So those are the kinds of things that we have to think about when we're talking about these kinds of contagious diseases. You want to prevent it, and you prevent it and you contain it to a specific, if there is a breakout, if you can't prevent it, there's a breakout, you want to make sure that it doesn't spread. It spreads as little as possible. And if it spreads, right, if it spreads, you want to make it as easy as you can on the people. You don't want it to be severe. You don't want people to get sick and die, right? So those are the three things that we try to do in the public health perspective. When you see the news, you see the things like quarantines, you see things like antivirals, you see things like they sent him home and told him he can't leave. We're sending him, we're bringing food to him and water to him or her or whatever it is. That's what they did with the 3 people that were identified as having COVID-19 here in Cleveland. They told him they had to go home and stay home. He couldn't leave the house.
So what if they do leave the
They'll
house?
bring it to him. Well, I'm not sure what would happen. There's probably some consequences. I'm not sure how they handle that. That's a good question. I don't know the answer. I would say that there's probably some kind of penalty, and I'm sure that someone said, well, you stay there, we'll bring you the food and water. Because, say what? Mitigation is trying to make the disease less severe. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But let's talk a little bit about prevention. How do we prevent from getting it? Well, the first thing I'm going to suggest is if there is a vaccine, get a vaccine and make sure you're vaccinated. Because it is the number one way to both prevent and or mitigate the virus. Or does that make sense?
Like a flu shot?
A flu shot, yeah, or a pneumonia shot,
Is there
or
such thing as that?
yeah, there's a pneumonia shot, but only for old people like me.
Oh, I'm about to say, I
It doesn't.
Told me
You
that.
young people don't. They don't give it to you because there's no need for it.
Old people catch pneumonia more.
Yeah, we're more susceptible to pneumonia. It's more likely for us to get it, and it's harder for us to get rid of it. It's one of the number one things that kill us when we get older, especially if you get a virus infection like the flu or COVID-19. All right, so vaccination is really a key thing. And again, we've talked about this. Those of you that came to Step Up, those of you that have various classes, you probably know the answer to this, but let's go ahead and ask this question. Are vaccines 100% safe? No, there is some concern, but the concern is really small, very, very small. And what you really have to think about when you're thinking about vaccination is you have to think about the positives and negatives. What you have to think about is that when you're dealing with the benefits of vaccinations far outweigh the danger. The danger, it happens, people do have a bad reaction to vaccination, but people have a bad reaction to eating a peanut. Or my wife ate shrimp her whole life, and then one day after we were married, we ate some shrimp at Christmas, and she broke out and started in hives and her throat started to swell up. It was out of nowhere, though, so it was dangerous. Anything is dangerous. There's some danger to anything. Doesn't mean you don't go out and try new foods. That means you try to mitigate, right? Which means make the negative consequences as little as possible. And you weigh out the benefits and the danger. For my wife, the benefits of eating shrimp are much smaller than the dangers of dying because she ate one, so she doesn't eat shrimp. So when it comes to vaccination, it turns out the benefits of vaccination way outweigh the danger. Yeah? Question?
That's all.
Yeah?
Okay, so if someone has an immune disorder, you still recommend them to get a flu shot?
I would recommend they talk to their doctor. Immune disorders, it depends. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not a physician. I know the physicians are well aware of it. Research has been done. They have tables. Like some people are allergic to certain vaccinations, and that does happen. And those are discussions you have with your doctor. That's why you have a doctor. They know all the latest research. They know you. They know your body. They know your issues. And you can, yes, bless you. You can have a real serious conversation with that doctor at that point. So I would I would say if possible, and most people can, you should get vaccinated, but and that's a pretty straightforward opinion from most experts that I've read. In fact, all experts that are credible. There are some fringe elements that want to, they call themselves anti-vaxxers or whatever, or people call them that anyways. People that don't believe in vaccinations, and they have all lists of things that they think are going on. I don't understand. Again, is there some danger? Yes, of course, but it's much more dangerous not to get vaccinated. Yeah.
Okay, so pretty much what you saying is like your wife was eating shrimp, and then like after y'all had got married, when she ate shrimp too, it's like something had happened to her. You saying? Like, was that like an allergic reaction? Like, okay, let's.
Yeah, that's right. You can become allergic. You don't have to be born allergic to something.
Okay, that was this.
Yeah, that's it. You could be eating peanuts your whole life, and then one day, it's a hot something, whatever. During vacation, you pop a peanut in your mouth, and you start to react to it.
I'm allergic.
You're allergic to peanuts. So yeah, you can become allergic to anything, anytime. All kinds of things happen.
My mom used to be allergic to bananas. Now she's not.
Yeah, and sometimes you can lose it. Sometimes you can be allergic to something and stop being allergic to it. That happens too.
I was
I stopped
allergic
being
to
allergic.
bananas, not yet.
How did that work though? Like it just go away? Like it's like that gene, like it goes.
That's a good point. No, the gene is always there. Your biochemistry changes because your body's always changing. You're always turning genes on and genes off. Also, maybe you're exercising more, and maybe you're less. You become less inflamed. Maybe you're still reacting, but not as bad. I don't know. There's all kinds of things that could be happening. Okay, so the other thing that you can do for prevention besides vaccination is try not to get exposed. Try to control exposure. All right. How do you control exposure? You stay away from large crowds. Because the more people that you're exposed to, the more likely you're going to run across one of these agents of disease, right? So that doesn't mean you don't go in, you're not going to go to the carnival, you don't go to Cedar Point, you don't hang out with your friends. No. But you don't have to go there every day. If there's an infection, if COVID-19, I'm not talking about a normal event like school that you have to go to. Obviously you have to go to work. Obviously you have to go, if you have to walk, if you have to go to the supermarket, there's a lot of people there. Obviously you have to go shopping, there might be a lot of people there. Control your exposure as best you can, right? So if you're going to go into a crowd, maybe, if you have to go to the supermarket, maybe you pick a non-peak time to go. Maybe you watch the concert on TV rather than going to the concert, especially today with COVID-19, especially if there's international fans, or if they're from out of country.
Because it's the championships for like boys and stuff, like they don't like limit of 4 people per player, and like fans and stuff can't even go to the games.
Yeah, they stopped the Ohio High School Sports Association, OSHA or whatever they are.
Oh yeah.
They canceled all fans. They're still going to have the tournaments, but no fans. They don't want crowds of fans.
Wendy Williams did that too. She don't want nobody coming to her shows.
Yeah.
They said on the radio.
Yeah, I heard this story.
Yeah, it's you know what? It's a way to control exposure. When you have a possible epidemic, one way to stop it from spreading is to stop meeting as a large group, and of course breathing the same air, coughing on each other, yelling, because every time people cry out and there's spittle going everywhere, and there's people breathing things in, and drinking, sharing drinks, sharing food, and of course that's where you start to get exposure. So controlling exposure is a big deal. Where you cannot control exposure, where you can't do that, you can't do anything about it, like going to school, like you could control exposure, you could walk around in a hazmat suit all day long, one of those whole body suits with a big what, you can walk around with an oxygen tank and do, 5, Mr. Mendoza. No, you can do that, I guess. It's hot, they're uncomfortable. It's hard to ride in them. So you could do that. That would control exposure. But assuming you're not going to do that, assuming you're not going to control exposure that way, which is being a complete hazmat suit, you're probably going to want to try to reduce as much you can the dangers of that exposure, right? Somebody mentioned coming to school. Well, you have to come to school. There's a bunch of kids. Well, that's right. We have no choice. I have no choice. We're here. We're together. There's a lot of us in a room, a lot of us in a hallway, a lot of us in a dining hall. How can we control what we do in order to make this necessary event called school be as little an exposure event, as small an exposure event as we can make it? In other words, how can we mitigate, right? How do we mitigate the exposure? How do we reduce the danger of us getting all together during this time of infection and reduce the chances that anyone's gonna get a disease?
Mitigate means to reduce.
Reduce the negative consequences. It means to reduce the negative consequences. There is not 2 T's. I'm sorry, I put 2 T's in.
I really knew.
Okay, it's
All right. If you don't, I spelled it right once, so why don't you give me
right.
credit?
That's why I asked you on the other page. So you
All right, I make mistakes. I'm human.
I don't think I know.
I'm just saying, everybody keeps thinking I'm God. I keep telling
If
you
that
I'm
was
not.
me, you probably would have been yelling at me. You talking to her so calm.
Did you notice how she said it? And she asked a question not in the middle of me speaking. She actually
But
waited.
no.
Did you notice that? Did you notice the difference?
No.
Notice the difference? She was like, are there 2 T's? Versus, oh, you spelled that wrong. Oh my God, there's a difference, right? All right, so mitigate. Reduce the negative consequences. We'll see when I grade your spelling of the word. All right, exposure, control exposure. So how do we mitigate the necessary exposure that we're getting by all of us being here together? Yeah, don't breathe. Yeah, how about that?
Maybe stop. Well, not stop talking, but you know, like.
Well, we got to be reasonable, right? There's like
Cautious,
there are things that we can do that are reasonable. Not talking, not breathing. That's just that's not going to happen. Not laughing. Okay, so reduce touching. Reduce, but reduce touching to, and probably be careful how we touch and where we touch. Like, don't touch people's faces. Don't touch your own face, right? Reduce touching of face. That's the big one, really. And actually, you could touch each other's faces all day long if you wash your hands. That doesn't really, hot or cold really is not the big deal. The big deal is soap. Soap, people do, all right? Better, look, here's the bottom line. If there's no soap, wash your hands anyways. Because the bottom line is all you're doing with all it is the water is taking the fungus, the bacteria, the virus, and washing it right off your hands. That's the point. The soap helps. Do that. So if you have soap, that's great. Antibiotic soap, okay, fine. But the antibiotic soap is not going to help against viruses. And it really doesn't help that much against bacteria. So it really doesn't make sense to use it. Hand sanitizer, I'm not sure. I'll tell you why in a minute. But wash your hands with soap for at least, and this is at least, right?
20 seconds.
20 seconds. And you need to know that for the test, so at least 20 seconds. This could be an easy test if you know your data, right? You know it's very easy. It's common sense stuff you've been learning since elementary school, but I'm holding you accountable because I really don't want to get sick because I'm the one who's in danger, not really you guys. Most of you aren't going to, if you do get COVID, you're not going to get that sick. Most of you. It'll be me that ends up getting sick and getting really sick. And we'll talk about why that is in just a minute.
He said we don't have to wash our hands with soap.
He said if there's not any soap in there, because sometimes.
No, I didn't say that. You guys sometimes say things that I don't say. What I said was, if there's no soap, wash your hands with water anyways, because it will wash something off, right? Better than nothing. And drying your hands on your shirt's probably not the best idea.
Mendoza, so when you go to jury duty, be careful
It's
when you're
not
talking
paper
to
towels.
Oh, yeah, I know.
shaking hands with.
Oh, I don't shake hands
I mean,
with
duh,
strangers.
some people don't do that.
I don't shake, and that's another thing. What did we say? Reduce touching. One of the ways, of course, reduce touching your face. So one of the ways to reduce touching is what?
Hugging.
Well, okay, no hugging. But what?
Or sharing food. Like,
How about no handshaking? Why do you shake hands? Why are you shaking hands?
People.
But there's no need for it.
so
Don't-
if the president walked in,
Listen,
Bump elbows, that's what y'all do.
listen. 1995. 1995.
I'm saying like,
Long time ago.
Oh, yes, we know.
I went on an interview to a medical school in Connecticut. And I went in and I had a cold. And I went to shake the doctor's hand. He didn't shake it.
I wouldn't shook it. You got a cold.
All right, shush. I didn't think about it at the time, you see.
I see.
I wasn't thinking about it. I was offended.
You think I'm dirty?
It's like, what's wrong? You don't want to shake my hand? But I realized later, it's like, oh, of course you don't want to shake my hand. I'm stupid for putting my hand out. Why would I do that?
But
Ever
you-
since then, if ever I'm sick and people stick their hand out, because that's what people do, it's the right thing to do, is to stick your hand out to greet someone. I say, I'm sorry, I'm sick. I don't want to get anybody else sick.
How old was you?
I must have been 25.
Oh, you
So your hand was just hanging there. You just put it
You
out.
probably like, okay.
Yeah, it was a mistake. So handshaking, no handshaking. I don't know. I guess that would be one way to reduce touching. Obviously, no hugs, etc. Especially, again, is it reasonable that you're home, your grandma comes over, and you're not going to hug her? Well, if you are sick, yes, don't hug her.
My grandma like touching me.
You guys are young. You guys can take a lot. You're strong and young and healthy for the most part. Your grandmother, older people, you got to be careful you don't give them something, any one of these things, that can make them sick. Look, my mother,
Give me something.
My grandma understands. She a German.
my mother was, when she was alive, we were having Christmas. She always made us go to Christmas dinner with her. My wife and I were sick. We had the flu. We said, we're not going to do it. She said, no, this is a one rule that I will not let you break. So we went over with masks on and gloves, and she didn't like it. She wanted us to kiss and hug. I said no, and we didn't kiss or hug her. It was hard for her to understand that, but she understood later. But the bottom line is, we reduced touching. We controlled. That's where the mask does come in handy, because we're able to control. We were able to not spread our germs to other people there at the party. But people don't understand that. They think that, oh, you think I'm dirty, or you think look, I love you. Love is stronger, more important. Family is more important. I'll take the cold, I'll take whatever it is. No, that's not an okay thing to do.
So, I ain't taking.
It's not okay. It's better not to get sick, better not to make someone else sick than to get them sick. So wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds. I actually would say 40 or something like that. Definitely with soap and scrub. Work at it. Work at it as hard as you work on the gum. I see you working so hard on that chewing gum, boy. I was walking around, I saw girls like, I mean, they were getting their calories, they were getting their steps in with their chewing of the gum. It was a lot of work.
Exaggerate stuff.
I mean, I heard the pop it continuously.
Right.
So anyways, wash your hands with soap at least 20 seconds. That's going to help, because then even if you touch, and of course don't touch your face, right? Like we say, reduce touching your face to as minimum, as little as possible. If you have to touch, if your face itches, you know what? You do the same procedures we do during labs. If we're doing a lab and we're using gloves, we got chemicals, you have to scratch your face because underneath your goggles they get itchy. You don't take your gloves with the chemicals on them and stick them under there and rub your eyes. You know not to do that. You take the gloves off, you wash your hands, you go outside, you rub your face, you come back in, you put on another pair of gloves. That's what we do during a lab. You kind of have to do that during times of infection like now, and actually it should be a habit that you should do all the time. You should reduce that idea of rub. If you have to rub your face, do this. Use the back of your wrist. If you have to rub your eyes because you really want it, then just go take another 30 seconds, wash your hands with soap and water, dry them, and then rub your face all you want. It's just simple. It's simple. Now, is it a pain in the butt? Sure it is. It is. And it's going to take a lot of practice by you to get it done. But it's going to reduce this. These get reduced a lot when you do that. The risk to your life, and really not so much your life now, but your parents and your grandparents and your great uncles and the people at church that you love, that sweet old lady gives you brownies or cookies or candy or whatever every time you go to church. That lady could get really hurt because you take her any one of these. So the best thing you can do is reduce that contact with her as best you can without, obviously there's going to be some limit to it. Yeah.
So if your parent got it, they gonna lock you up in the house too?
Yeah.
Even if you don't got it?
I'm not sure what they're going to do. We don't know what's going to do. See,
Everybody get out.
so let's get to that in a second. But let's say this. When we're talking about containment, so let's talk about containment since you want to talk about containment. So that's pretty much all we can do. If you're sick, use a mask. To help other people. To help society. It doesn't help you to wear a mask. Most of the time, because remember, you still got your eyeballs, it's still an entryway, your ears. If someone sneezes in your direction, the snot ends up on your eyeball, you're still getting the virus. It happens. Now you wish you had glasses, huh? So anyways.
Being people, first of all, I got it. I just broke it.
All right, next. So that's reduced touching. So the next thing is you have to wonder, well, what do you do? And of course, follow the correct procedure, right? Wipe down the tables. That's another thing we can do to try to reduce that. I should have mentioned that, which we did. We wiped down surfaces, clean the surfaces. Now I know I can tell you that I watched the cafeteria staff clean all the tables. They were clean when you went in. But just because they've been cleaned off doesn't mean they're sanitized. So you can't assume that you're given a styrofoam plate that's sanitized. Keep your food on a styrofoam plate. I saw a young man walk in at 8:10 or something like that, and he went into the dining hall to eat breakfast, and he sat, was on his phone watching whatever it was he was doing on his phone, eating breakfast. Boy, he took like a half an hour eating the breakfast. Half his breakfast was on the table. Yeah. So clean the surfaces. Obviously use Kleenex to blow your nose, right? Don't wipe it on your shirt or whatever. Those kinds of things I think are pretty straightforward. After you blow your nose, wash your hands. It always goes back to the biggest thing you can do. Look, the most important thing you can do, the thing that's going to make the biggest difference the thing, it's not, it's not all these other things that you read about. It's this: wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds. If people did this, it would make such a big difference. I don't even know where to begin. And let me say that you might say to me, well, people do that. People wash their hands. They don't. I see them every day in the bathroom. They don't. They go to the bathroom without washing their hands. They eat. How many people went to the bathroom to wash their hands before they went to eat? Almost nobody. I'm
he was talking about now. You talking about now?
How about today? Lunch.
Oh,
At
today
lunch.
no. I don't know.
Almost nobody went into that dining hall, and no one went and washed their hands before they eat. Almost no one.
We be hungry.
Somebody told me.
Who got time?
Somebody told me you're supposed to wash your hands before you go to the bathroom.
Yes, wash your hands before you go to the bathroom and after.
You gonna have some dry hands, and your hands gonna please your calories.
La 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 la. So the reason because what did we say? What did we say? It's the entryways into your body.
Yeah, but then the good bacteria in your hands will leave.
Yeah. There is good. Stop speaking.
We don't know everything, guys. So listen.
So you wash your hands before you go to the restroom so you don't get any nasty things. And you're on two other openings you have to your body that are not on your face. So you have many openings to your bodies. You have many windows and doors. Most of the windows and doors to your body are right on your face. But there's two other openings that are not on your face that you have to deal with when you go to the restroom. And if you're not washing your hands before you go to the restroom, then you're taking any number of things in with you.
Okay.
All right.
So then how you keep the good bacteria on your hands and
The bacteria that's on your wrist and on your arms multiply every 20 minutes. They will quickly be replaced by the bacteria that's on your wrist. Within 2-3 hours, your hands have a nice layer of bacteria on them again. All right, it's called cellular division, binary fission. All right. So now,
cellular division and what?
binary fission. Cellular division is a category. Binary fission is what bacteria do. They don't do mitosis, do they? Because they don't have a nucleus. All right. So moving on, when we're talking then about COVID-19, that's the disease everybody's worried about. The question is, why isn't anyone doing anything? Let's talk first one more thing about mitigation. Mitigation with viruses, you can do them with antivirals. We do have some antivirals for some viruses. We have none for COVID-19. Antivirals, what they'll do is they will make the infection less severe. We don't use them often. All right, we don't use them often. The flu, I think there's something called Thermoflu. No. Is it, I don't know, something like that. The stuff the hospital gives you?
Yeah.
All right. The stuff the hospital has, they don't put it out they don't put it out in the supermarkets or what have you, because they reserve that for the most severely infected, because what it does is it mitigates, it makes it less strong, the infection less strong. What do we say about book bags? And you're on your phone, you're not taking notes. I'm not talking to you, but you need to move your book bag down. So antivirals make the infections less severe, but they don't solve the infection. They don't stop you from getting infected. They don't get rid of the infection.
That's your body that needs rid of it.
Your body attacks viruses. That's all we really have for viruses.
That's why you have a weak immune system.
That's why when you're weak immune system, it's more likely that you'll catch it. It's easier for you to catch it, and it becomes more severe. So antivirals in one way, are some ways of mitigating it. Breathing treatments, like adding, forcefully putting air into your lungs in the hospital.
Me too. I took too
I
much.
hate taking it.
It was terrible. I couldn't walk. I fell to the ground.
It make your heart beat like real fast. I don't like it.
It like breathing treatment.
All right. No, this is done in a hospital when you go in with a lung infection. In the hospital, not asthma, not breathing treatments for asthma. I know a lot of people people that have asthma or chronic lung issues. You'll go home and they'll have a machine that vaporizes the medicine and puts it into their lungs. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about machines that will breathe for you. We have all kinds of machines that help mitigate the impact of viruses that are on your lungs or on your kidneys or on your liver, whatever it is. So again, mitigation is reducing the negative consequences.
Bless you.
Did you sneeze into your arm? Oh.
Be on the exam. Give me, when we're talking about infectious diseases, what were some of the things that we talked about? What were some of the words that we used? Yeah.
Incubation period.
Incubation period.
Asymptomatic.
Excuse me? No, I'm using my finger. Incubation period. What is incubation period?
Exposure to an infection and appear to the first symptom.
So as you're sitting there and you're walking along and someone else spreads the virus through droplets and it enters your body, at that moment, the clock starts. And you go from exposure to illness, to symptoms. What are those symptoms? Well, this depends on the disease, right? It depends on the disease. So that period of time is called incubation period. What is the general term for an incubation period of viruses? There was another word we used. Well, you are asymptomatic, right? Before you show symptoms, you're asymptomatic. So that's another word. You are asymptomatic. What's the other, what'd you say? You're still spreading it, that's correct. You can still spread it. During that time, though, during the incubation period, you're asymptomatic. You're not showing symptoms. A means not. Symptomatic means showing symptoms. There was another word that has to do with what we talked about. It begins with an L. Latency, that's right. Latency is again, the key word here is late, right? Latency is the ability, is how long, again, is this infectious disease asymptomatic In other words, before you show symptoms. All right, so this is an important characteristic of any contagious disease. Any infectious agent, it's important to know how long does it take for that disease to show symptoms. And why is that important? Because that's how we identify someone sick. Whether they're sneezing or stuffy nose or whatever it is. So it's that symptom of fever, sneezing, whatever, that's going to be the key to know that someone's sick. So that latency period, let's go ahead and compare. And what kind of viruses did we talk about yesterday? The family of viruses, the one that you're going to be testing on. This specifically the spelling that I told you better know. COVID-19. That's one of them. But that's not a family, that's a specific one. Go ahead, say it again. Corona. Vera. Spell it. A-V-I-R. I didn't say how many science teachers going to take to spell it. I said how many ninth graders. I have to count, though, if I have to figure that out. So Coronaviridae is the family of viruses. Among the Coronaviridae, which the news likes to call the news likes to call corona, right? The coronavirus is not a coronavirus, it's a family of viruses. It includes COVID-19, which are one of the ones you have to know for sure, right? And it includes the flu, both the A and the B strain. It includes SARS, S-A-R-S, and MERS, M-E, I had to be E-R-S. And it includes Ebola. So these are all part of the same family of viruses. Everybody should be familiar with it. Everybody should know how to spell it, hopefully by Friday. Hopefully you can spell it. Everyone spells it the same way on Friday. Now these viruses, they have a bunch of things that make them put them all in the same family. They have a lipid layer. They have these little club-looking things that stick out, different shapes for the different viruses, but for the most part, and you know I'm a horrible drawer, so artist, no one's ever called me an artist, so they all have these weird looking clubs, and then they have this RNA, single RNA molecule inside it. RNA can be used to do what? You know this now, or you shouldn't be passing the class. What is RNA used for? One of the uses of RNA.
Proteins.
Making proteins. So this RNA can be used to make proteins, enzymes and such. And interestingly, one of the proteins that it can make, this RNA can make, what it does is it goes on into your cell, and in your cell it uses RNA to make DNA. So it does the opposite of what our cells normally do, and it makes copies of itself over and over and over and over and over again. It actually, it's really an interesting thing that this virus does. And that's how it hurts you, because it takes over your cell mechanisms, takes over your cell. That's what viruses do. They don't actually bore a hole into you. These cell surface proteins, these cell surface structures, those clubs, they attach to your cell, and your cell takes them into themselves. So your cell takes them in. And then it starts to make copies. It makes millions and millions of copies of the virus. It can overwhelm the cell and kill the cell. In the case of HIV, which this is not an HIV virus, okay, this is not in the same family as HIV. But in the case of HIV, it kills the cells, and that's a problem. Interestingly, these viruses are not really known for killing the cell. The problem here is and by the way, they're all pretty much respiratory viruses, right? The flu, the cold, COVID-19, which is the one everybody's talking about now. And remember, when we're looking at the news, they're really talking about COVID-19. That's the virus that everybody's worried about. One of the problems with COVID-19, with all of them, is that as you're being infected, your body reacts. And so you have your lungs that sit here, something like this, and they attach to trachea. Your right lung is bigger than your left lung, has more lobes, etc. So in any case, what happens is, when your body reacts to these viruses, the very first thing it does is it starts to have an immune response, producing these things called cytokines. And they create inflammation. You know this, it happens when you sprain your ankle, you call it swelling. Fluid fills your lungs, and it could lead to secondary infections. It could lead to a lot of different things. But ultimately, it becomes hard to breathe, and it makes you weaker. Right? That's kind of the main symptom of someone with the flu. Along with this comes the symptom. Here we're talking about the symptoms, right? This is the cause of the hard to breathe, is a symptom. The cause is the inflammation. The inflammation is your body's response to a viral infection. So it's your body trying to get rid of trying to kill the virus, stop it from spreading. Then what happens to your body is that it can get a secondary infection. Well, first of all, we should talk about some of the other symptoms. You have fever. In general, with COVID-19, it's a low fever. I forgot to add, don't forget a common cold, right? The cold is here as well. And the cold, you don't really get a fever with a cold. You just get sneezing, right? Some runny nose. With the flu, you really don't get the sneezing. So if you're sneezing, you generally are like, it's probably not a cold. I'm not sure what the symptoms of SARS or MERS is, or are. Ebola, the symptoms are obvious, right? You have bleeding out of your eyes, out of your nose, out of your whatever, and it's pretty obvious what the symptoms of Ebola are. I'm pretty sure there's probably a fever involved with it as well. With COVID, you have a low grade fever. You have a sore throat. It's hard to write with my finger. Are you kidding me? Forget it. A sore throat. All right. So your throat is sore. You have a fever. You get congested, hard to breathe. Right. This is one of the symptoms. Of course, remember that the danger here is that these viruses have a long latency period, right? A long period of time where they're incubating, where you're not showing any of these symptoms. The flu is just like 24 hours and you start to show symptoms, maybe 48. Ebola is a relatively short period of time, it's incubating. A cold is pretty quick, 24 hours, 48 hours, something like that. But COVID is 14 days, up to 14, 15 days. So that's odd. So with COVID-19, you have something like anywhere from 2 to 14 days that it's incubating. It's not showing any symptoms. Now we know that there is transmission. It is able to get transmitted while it's in incubation, but we don't know how much. We don't know how much of this virus is spread that way, and how much of it is spread. There's a lot with this possible pandemic, and that's another one of those words we used, pandemic versus epidemic. Pandemic is worldwide, epidemic is localized to a country, all right? So remember that, those two key words here, pandemic. You'll see it in the news a lot, pandemic versus epidemic. So COVID-19 is a 2 to 14 incubation period, or what we call latency period, right? I'm going to use incubation period so I don't have to try to write with my finger anymore than I have to. 2 to 14 days incubation period. We also know it's more deadly than the flu. COVID-19 is more deadly than the flu. So when we're talking about deadly, what we're saying is that instead of something like with the flu, it's 0.2% of the people that are exposed die. With COVID-19, some of the numbers coming out of China are something like 5%, close to about 5%. It used to be 2% at first, but now they're looking at something like about 5%. Yeah. See, the thing is, we don't know. That's the problem with something. With the flu, we can do a lot better prediction. With COVID-19, we just don't know because it's new. That's why everyone was scared, because it's new. So many people are scared of it. They don't know, and not knowing often makes people very nervous. But I mean, the good news for you guys is that young people, it's much, much lower. It's almost none. The very young, and people your age, people younger than you, people younger than 14, it's almost no cases. But at your age, I think there's like maybe 0.2% or something like that. Let me look up the numbers. I have them here.
Seen 2 cases at Laurel School.
Say that again?
Ms. Pellegano said yesterday they seen 2 cases at Laurel.
What's Laurel?
The all-girls school in Shaker.
Oh, yeah. See, that's what I want to talk to you today. That's what I'm going to focus on once we're done with this review, because you're going to see a lot of cases, unfortunately. They're going to pop up. There's no way to stop this at this point, I don't think. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Give me a second, because I know I emailed it to myself. You know, let's not talk about. The news is interesting. It's important, but specific cases are anecdotal. I could tell you stories about stuff, about pregnancy, that would make you not want to ever be pregnant. I could tell you stuff but they would just be anecdotal. They would just be that 1 in a million, 1 in 1,000 case. Does that make sense? when you're looking at how much should you be concerned about this, you have to consider all the average case. Does that make sense? Is it making sense to you? You can't focus on the worst case scenario. You focus on the worst case scenario, I don't know how anybody would get anything done. So at people your age, the young, people from 10 to 19 years old for COVID-19, thus far, according to National Geographic, it's 0.02%. 0.02%. You see the big difference where you have an average is of 5%, but the very young, your people, well, I shouldn't say very young, because you guys get insulted every time I say you're young, but you are. The very young is only 0.02% that die from it. Now, no one said how many young people get it, right? But the very young, only 0.02 die. With the flu, the people of the same age group, it's 0.002. So it's 100 times more, COVID is 100 times more deadly than the regular flu. They're both coronaviruses, right? But COVID is that much more deadly. With people my age, the percentage is really, really, really high compared to yours. People from 50 to 59, it's 1.3%. Now, I said very, very high, but really look at it. Is that really that high? Like, if you were a betting person, you probably wouldn't bet that someone would die if they got COVID, right? If they're this age group. Now, again, this is according to National Geographic. Here's the biggest problem. And so you ask yourself, if you sit there and you ask yourself, well, wait a minute, you said it was 5% average. You said it's 1.3 for 50 to 59. And you said in my age group, it's only 0.02. So how do you get an average of 5? How do you get an average of 5 with those numbers? You get 80 and above die at a rate of 14.8%. 14.8% of our older people that get it so far as we know, this is all new, are dying. So that's a big deal. If you have grandparents, you have older uncles, older members of the family. My father's still alive. I have my father-in-law, my brother's in the hospital. These are concerns. Yes.
I was gonna say, so based on what we know now, so it's pretty much like a possibility that a lot of people will possibly have it, not even know yet.
All right, say that again. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
Kind of it's a possibility that a lot of people in the world can have it and not even know yet.
That's a beautiful question, and it's absolutely the case. That's what I'm trying to get to with all this. So I'll be back to you in just a second. Let me see what this young man's asked to ask. Go ahead.
So everybody's been saying that we should worry more about the flu, but if this is more deadly than the flu and you can't contain it, could it, in the long run, it will become a problem, right?
That's another good point. When we talk about containment, we'll talk about why that both are true. Yeah.
So the kids that's even though it's not a lot, when they say quarantine, is they keep them in the hospitals or are they sending them home and keeping them at home?
They're sending them home and keeping them at home because the hospital can't handle it. You can't have them in the hospital because who do you think is the most vulnerable to this virus? The people in the hospital. You don't, yeah.
Winter Gang has to go to the dining hall to take her white coat picture.
Winter. Is she here? Yeah. Leave your stuff there, dear. You just gotta get your white coat, take your picture, come back. So when we're dealing with this, and these are really great questions, but let's start with containment, which I think is your question, and also relates to your question, right? If we can't contain it, why should we be more afraid of the flu than COVID? And how many of people, and can we contain it if so many people have it and don't know it? It turns out that the very young show very few symptoms, and their symptoms are very, very light. And let's talk about one more thing. The flu, to what we know about COVID-19. Now I'm going to say this again. I've said it before. I'll say it again. This is all new. And so you have to keep up with the news and prepare. Panic doesn't do any good. Preparation does, and understanding does. The flu. There is an epidemic of the flu right now. We are an epidemic. We've had an epidemic already. We've had it all year. COVID-19 is now a pandemic. It is officially a pandemic, which means it's all around the world. It's epidemic all around the world. It knows no borders. Let's be clear that with the flu, it's the highest death rate in 15 years. This year's flu epidemic. It's the highest death rate in 15 years. According to the Academy, the American Academy of Pediatrics, for children under 4, it's the second highest rate among all age groups. So children under 4 are getting the flu really badly. And it's estimated, according to the CDC, it's estimated that 29 million people have gotten the flu. 29 million. They've gotten sick. And 288, now this is a crazy number, 280,000 have been hospitalized. That means that those are the people that needed those mitigation things, right? The antivirals. Remember, there are no antivirals for COVID-19, so let's be clear on that. But for the flu, antivirals, they've been maybe put on a respirator. So our hospitals are already, understand what that means. Our hospitals are dealing with this already without COVID-19, without discussing that. You see why there's concern on whether our hospitals can handle a bad outbreak of COVID-19 on top of a bad outbreak of the flu. Yes?
So the people that are not vaccinated, like the kids that don't have vaccines, isn't that like cause more problems for them?
Yeah. If you're not vaccinated, you get a worse form of the flu if you get it. You get a higher chance of getting the flu. And also, because you're not vaccinated, the herd immunity is impacted, depending on what percentage of the individuals are not vaccinated. So this is really a really big, and I want to tell you that before COVID-19, I don't know about now, but before COVID-19, the flu, there were people in Connecticut protesting that they would not allow their children who were not vaccinated to enter school. They had a law that was restricting them from going to school if they weren't vaccinated. And they were protesting that because they said all kids deserve an education and my kid shouldn't have to be forced to get a flu vaccine or a vaccinated in order to go to school. That's where we were at before COVID-19. And virologists, biologists all over the world have been saying, look, this is nuts. If you don't vaccinate, you're going to get problems. And now look at us. 280,000 people are getting it. And 280,000 people are hospitalized, and 29 million have gotten it. Yeah.
If you like been recently sick or have had the flu, is it easy for you to get COVID?
Yeah, that's exact. We were getting there. Yeah, good question. You should write that down. You guys are really thinking. That's right. So 16,000, I think I said 60,000 at one point. It should be 16,000 have died. That's my bad. I'm pretty sure I said 60,000 in the past. Yeah, I meant, I either misheard, misunderstood, or misspoke, whatever. It's 16,000. 16,000 have died overall. That's insane. That's not bad? Okay. If you think 16,000 is not a big, I mean, I see what you're saying, that compared to 390 million people in the United States and 9 billion in the world, 16,000 is a lot. It's not a lot, unless it's your brother, your sister, your mom, or you. All right? Then it's all of a sudden it's a big deal. But 16,000 is a lot. It's the worst. And this is with the vaccine. All right? With the vaccine. The vaccine this year is 55% effective. The vaccine is 55% effective for children. And it's 45% effective overall. So you see, it's not a perfect, even the vaccine is not a perfect solution to the problem. There's no magic bullet, is the point. So, and again, the flu mutates. The flu changes DNA. It mixes DNA with other organisms. That's how you got the swine flu or the bird flu, or they literally takes some DNA from a pig and combines it with a human DNA, and you get a virus that can impact both pig and human. And it just keeps mutating all the time. That's why the flu is so, it's a coronavirus, but the flu is difficult to have a vaccine that's steady. Polio didn't do that. That's why polio's gone. Polio's been eradicated because we vaccinated everybody for polio. Everybody was immune to it, so it couldn't replicate. It didn't change like the flu does. Smallpox is gone. Again, the same reason. It couldn't mutate fast enough. But the flu can mutate, which is why COVID-19 is so scary, because it's one of those viruses, one of those coronaviruses. Now, it's a pandemic. It's much more widespread, right? It's going to spread more easily. COVID-19 spreads more easily. Now, do you understand that this is why, by the way, these things here are why people have said you should be more concerned about the flu than you are about COVID-19? Those of you that are concerned about why the CEO, why the governor, why the mayor hasn't done more about this, why were you not worried about this? Yes? You know what? You're absolutely right. I think that's why. I think that's why people weren't as worried about the flu, because they could do something. You could get a vaccine. Even if you knew, most people don't even know that it was only 55% effective, right? Most people think if they get the vaccine, they're set, right? But you got to combine this with all that other stuff we talked about. Right, all the containment. If you're sick, stay home. If you're sick and you have to go out, wear a mask. If you can avoid going into big crowds, avoid it. If someone's sneezing or coughing, move away from them, at least like 3 feet. And I think it's more than that, but I can't remember the exact distance. But move away from them. You don't have to shun them, you don't have to make them feel bad, but move away. And anyways, they should feel bad for coming out in the public coughing and sneezing. Should be covering up your mouth. If they're coughing and sneezing, they should be wearing a mask. You don't have to tell them that because maybe they can't afford it or can't find it now that all the masks are taken up. But they should at least be covering their faces with their elbows. And you know little kids don't do this. Even if you train them, they'll sneeze right in your face. So you see a little kid that's sick, move away. The further distance you have between them, the less chance you have of being impacted. Yeah. It's a virus that mutated. Viruses, I'm not sure if I understand how viruses come to be. I understand that viruses start from someone's DNA and somehow that a sequence just starts to replicate on its own. Obviously, since it's part of a family, the last thing I read, no one knows where it came from. But understand, a conspiracy theory is not necessary. It doesn't have to be some weird government thing. It doesn't have to be some kind of... It could have been a government thing. It could have been a weapon of some sort. But it doesn't have to be. Now, we do have parts of our government and parts of governments all over the world that do work on biological warfare. Do you understand that? They are creating viruses and bacteria that can be used to kill.
Don't they use that for overpopulation?
No, they shouldn't use it for that. I pray to God that that's not what they're being used for. They use those kinds of, they have it as what we call a deterrent. If you know I have it, you release it on me, I release it on you. Right? So that's why people put in their windows, Smith & Wesson protects this house. You know what Smith & Wesson is? It's a handgun. ADT protects this house. But people advertise dogs, beware of dogs. They're telling you, come here and you're going to have problems. So it's called a deterrent, right? So that's why our government has them. I hope that this is not one of those things. But let me be clear, Ariel. Oh, I shouldn't have said your name. Sorry, I'm recording. But let me be clear. These viruses, they happen all the time. Happen all the time. You have to expect. This has been predicted. This is not a surprise to people who have been reading about it and warning about it. I've been teaching this for 20 years. I've been teaching biology for 20 years. I've been saying, eventually, this happened in 1919. Eventually, we're going to get flu. Like, for instance, the flu used to be one type of flu. Now we have A and B. Then we have H1N1, which, by the way, we're starting to see an increase. That's another thing about the flu. We're starting to see an increase in H1N1 infections, which is it's a type of flu. It's called the H1N1. It's a bird flu. I think it's the bird flu. It might be a swine flu. I can't remember. But it's how virulent it is, how deadly it is, how well it spreads, that kind of thing. So are we getting the idea why people were at first, when this first started, people were like, we should be worried more about the flu than usually. I mean, we're in an epidemic already. But the COVID's and the reason people are worried about COVID-19 is because we're worried that hospitals will be overwhelmed. Hey, I told you I'm a bad speller. What do you want me to do? We're worried that hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. If you're dealing with 280,000 people, and then now you got COVID-19 infections coming in, that's a problem. Not to mention the bacterial infections, the fungal infections, not the common cold that got bad, the asthma. So that's an issue. COVID-19 impacts people with, and this is true of the flu as well, so let me keep it off from this chart. It spreads more easily. It's a pandemic now. It's deadlier. That's right. Very good. Thank you. There's no vaccine for it. No vaccine, it's deadlier. There are no antivirals for this. We can't mitigate it. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. Has a longer latency period or incubation period. It spreads when people have no symptoms. All right, so asymptomatic, when people are asymptomatic, they can still give it to people. It kills older people more at higher rates, rather. But this is something that the flu doesn't do as much, is unfortunately for COVID-19, it scars the lungs. That can lead to lifelong health issues. So even though people aren't dying, there is a concern that an infection that you do survive causes you for the rest of your life to have breathing issues or other problems. So don't think that just because you're dying less of it, that's somehow a free pass, right? It is a concern across the board. Does that mean we have to panic? No, that means we have to do the things we just talked about, which is that whole prevention piece and the containment. Yeah.
So you like have it, but you like get over it for the most part. Is the virus still like in your body, living in you?
No, once you get rid of it, it's gone. As far as I know, there are viruses that can come back, but even then, I think for the most part, with antivirals or vaccines, you can get rid of them. Yeah, there are viruses that hide. For instance, hepatitis is famous for that. It'll clear for a minute, and it'll have some of the DNAs in the liver, and then you get under some stress. Oh, you know what's a good one? Mononucleosis is a good example of a disease that you can get over. Herpes is another one. You get over it, it's gone. You think it's gone, but it's latent in the DNA, and then you get under stress and it comes out. But luckily, as far as I know, COVID-19 is not going to be one of those. The flu is not one of those. The herpes virus, which includes like that whole group of things like shingles and that. In fact, shingles is chicken pox that you cleared out of your body when you were a kid, and then later in life it comes out of your own cells, starts to make more viruses and attacks your nerves instead of your skin. Yeah.
You know how you say, like, if we were getting, like, young people, if we get coronavirus, that won't get as serious, and, like, it'll be like a flu, does that mean, like, our bodies will be more likely to be able to fight it off?
Yeah, your bodies are more likely to fight it off. You're younger, you have less underlying issues, because here's the problem, but there's some exceptions to that. Remember what I just said. That means you're going to survive at a higher rate, much higher rate. However, we don't know what kind of long-term problems you might have. So you have to be concerned. It's not like, oh, I'm young, so I can go do whatever I want. Listen, and the other thing is, while you're sick, you can pass it on to your mom, your dad, your grandparents. And if that happens, like you could lose some of your support structure, right? Some of your family. That's not a good thing. Obviously, nobody wants that. So you have to be concerned about that. So when you're not doing these prevention things that we just talked about, if you're not caring about yourself because you're young, then you have to understand you're also not caring about your mother and your father and your grandparents and all the other people in your life that are older. So you have to consider the older you're. In fact, I have a brother that's in a hospital with a chronic illness called MS. My father-in-law is in a hospital, is in a home. Both of them are in a home. And my father's older. And my wife and I are discussing ways we can prevent issues. In fact, we're talking about getting masks and going to see them, even though we're not sick, even though as far as we know, we don't have COVID-19, but as we just discussed, we don't know. So I want to go there and make sure that I wash my hands before I touch him, that he washes his hands before I wash his body, and when I feed my brother, because I have to feed him because he can't feed himself. So when I feed him, I'm using gloves, and I have a mask on when I go visit him. I don't want to do all that, but I need to do it because it's just in case. Because if he gets it, for sure he's going to be in trouble. Yeah.
How serious you think this all gonna get? Like, no.
We don't know. Here's the short answer. Now here's what I'm telling you. I've said this 100 times. Nobody knows. It is a little scary. It's good to be a little scared, because what does that do to us when we're a little scared? It makes us cautious. That's what scared's for. That's what fear is for, to put into us the idea that we have to be careful. However, that doesn't mean we go screaming into the night. We don't have to lose any sleep over this. We do what we can. We do what we can. We keep up with the news. We watch the news. We listen for instructions. We hope that the people in charge, it seems like our CEO, the mayor of Cleveland, and the governor of Ohio are taking into account all the right things. So people are working. They could have been better with the hospital preparation before, but that's water under the bridge, right? Hopefully somebody starts to fund hospitals, starts to get these machines where they need to be. And gets antivirals. We know we have labs all over the country, all over the world, working on a vaccine. And we know that even the NBA has stood up and said, okay, we'll stop having basketball games. So we're getting people doing the right thing. So we're doing all we can. So so that's the key, is do what you can. Be a little afraid. Hey, I'm a little afraid. Hey, it freaked me out when I went to the store and there was no toilet paper, no cleaner. I went to go get rice for my brother went to go get rice at Costco for my aunt. She got we're Puerto Rican, we eat a lot of rice, that's what we do. So he went to go get rice, and there was no rice. We had to go to 3 stores to find simple supplies. Now that's people panicking, right? People loading up and hoarding. Here's the thing. There's a concern there that you're not going to have what you need when you need it, so you should go out and make sure you get whatever you can in small increments and build up your supply. But there's another concern. What happens when somebody doesn't have food and they can't find it? Where are they going to go? Right? So looting is not unusual in emergency situations. That's why we have a National Guard, that's why we have police, etc. So you have to be, this is also a concern, right? So there's kind of levels of concern. Let's talk about that. So first, and this is the most important one, by the way, so let's make it green. It's you. You have control over your environment. You can prevent a lot of this. You can prevent the spread. You can prevent getting infected. You can now, I say that, I shouldn't say it that way. It's not that you can prevent it, you can minimize. You can minimize the risk, right? By reducing exposure. You're in control of that. Then outside that circle, you have governmental agencies and structures that are going to also do containment, right? So then there's containment. Outside that circle, outside of containment, which is all the stuff we just talked about, closing down big sports events, any kind of major gatherings, especially if they're international or out of state, out of country. The next, obviously, is something that's beyond our control, is developing a vaccine. That's happening. How fast it happens, it all depends on the virus. And so we're working, many labs are spending many millions of dollars to try to get this done. Antivirals, obviously. And that's it. That's pretty much it. So really the most important one is this inner circle, is you and yours. You and yours are the most important part of this solution. So now let's talk a little bit about history, and let's move on And know that that's pretty much all that's going to be on the test tomorrow. You got 2 minutes, so I want to show you something. I want to show you that this is not the first time this has happened. All right? We've been through smallpox. We've been through wait, don't put anything away yet. Look at the pictures of the polio epidemic. This is a machine that we had to put kids in that have polio. It's called an iron lung. Until they can get better, until their bodies can recover. Look at how many kids. This is one hospital, one room in one hospital. Look at how many machines were necessary.
Isn't polio when your legs bent?
That's an outcome. Polio is a virus that attacks your muscles, including your breathing muscles. The iron lung helped the kids breathe so they wouldn't die until their bodies could fight it off. So this was what it was like. The government, that's this part here, right? The government with vaccines, antivirals, and machinery is that part of the puzzle was taken care of, and we've been through this before with smallpox and other infections. So we have to consider that this is not new. We've been through this before, we survived, and we came out on top. Okay? And we'll get through this, God willing. So just keep your head on your shoulders, use your mind, do the prevention. Be ready.